Yo, what is going on, adventurers? Logic here with another Genshin Impact tutorial guide video. Today we're going to be going over the 7 elements in Genshin Impact and what they do and how they synergize with each other. So with no further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so in Genshin Impact there are 7 elements. Those elements are Hydro, Geo, Pyro, Anemo, Cryo, Electro, and Dendro. Those are all the elements in the game thus far. There is no Dendro character yet, but this is basically going to be wood or nature element in the near future. So be ready for that, that's gonna be awesome. Elements play a big role in Genshin Impact, and it's best you know what each and every element does on its own. Just coming in contact with one of these elements will proc you or the enemy with an elemental status. Cryo reduces the target's movement speed, and Pyro causes burn damage over time. These 2 elements are the only 2 elements in the game that can actually do something on their own. All the other elements are kind of gonna need synergy and another element to kind of get the full fruition of the element. But we're gonna talk about that right now. This is kind of the bigger topic when it comes to elements, and it's called the elemental reaction. This is when one element meets another. For example, if fire meets water. There are 9 types of elemental reactions in the game, and we're gonna go over each and every one. The first of those ones being Dendro and Pyro, deals damage over time. Okay, next up is Crystallize, plus any other element, right? So if you use your Geo ability on a target, it will drop a crystal or like an orb-like material with that specific target's element. So when you pick that crystal up, you will get an elemental shield towards that type. So if you're fighting a water type monster and you use your Geo ability, water crystals will drop, and if you pick them up, you'll get a water shield. With this elemental shield, if they try to hit you with an element, with that specific element, it will basically not penetrate your defense or be really hard. It will still protect you from other forms of damage, but mostly the specified damage. Up next is Electro Charge. Electro plus water. Deals electro damage over time. This is pretty much cut and dry. You hit somebody with electric and they're already procced with water, or vice versa, you're just gonna do electro damage over time. Pretty simple stuff. Next up is Frozen. So you pretty much hit somebody with cryo and water, and this just basically freezes the opponent, and probably one of the better elemental reactions in the game. It can also work vice versa, so like if they already have like cryo procced on them and you hit them with water, they're also gonna freeze, which is super useful just because it stuns them in place. They can't move until they break out, and you just have a bunch of time to dish out damage. Up next is Melt, Cryo and Fire. So it's pretty much ice and fire. Attack will deal ×2 damage if Pyro is the triggering element, or 1.5 damage if Cryo is the triggering element. So pretty much you just want to try to have Cryo already on and proc with fire. Obviously this isn't going to happen every time, and you're not going to be in the perfect situation every time, but you want to try to make sure that you proc fire because you're getting ×2 damage, which can go a long way fighting enemies. Up next is Overloaded, which is Electro and Pyro. This deals area effect pyro damage. It's really good and super useful in some situations. Our next elemental reaction is Super Conduct, Cryo and Electro. Deals AoE, cryo damage, and reduces the target's defense. So this is super good, not only because it does cryo AoE damage, but because it reduces the target's defense, which is good on its own. So if you're struggling with a mob, or you're struggling with an enemy, you could just try to go for this proc or this elemental reaction, and it could lower their defense and give you an easier time on that enemy. Really good. Our next elemental reaction up is Swirl, which is wind plus any other element. These elements being water, fire, electro, and cryo. It won't apply to Geo, or it won't apply to Dendro, because there's just no way for it to swirl those effects, you know? So pretty much what it does is it's gonna deal extra elemental damage and spread the effect. So if you use it on someone that's procced with fire, it's gonna take that fire and it's just gonna spread it across the area. Not like a huge amount of the area, but it'll just spread it. And you'll see like little lines below the ground that's spreading this element. It's really good, and it has a cool effect. It's maybe not as good as like Super Conduct, because Super Conduct reduces the defense, but I still think it holds a place on its own. Our next elemental reaction is Vaporize, water and fire. Attack will deal ×2 damage if Hydro is the triggering element, or times 1.5 damage if Pyro is the triggering element. So this one is kind of like Melt from earlier with fire and Cryo, except this is with water and fire. So you kind of want to make your triggering element Hydro instead of fire, but obviously if you can't do that, or if you're in a situation that, you know, is just not able to do that, then it's okay to proc fire, because you want to get some damage and not no damage at all. This is a good elemental reaction for the proper situation. So as of right now, these are all the elemental reactions in Genshin Impact. Use them to your advantage and you'll be unstoppable. Another thing to keep in mind when you're in co-op mode, you get elemental resonance. Certain combinations of elemental characters in the whole party will receive a special bonus. These bonuses also stack. So let's start off with the first party bonus, Enduring Rock. This will require 2 Geo characters in the party. Increases resistance to interruption when protected by a shield, increases attack damage by 15%. Fervent Flames. This requires 2 fire characters in the party. Affected by Cryo for 40% less time and increases attack by 25%. Soothing Waters. This requires 2 water characters in the party. Affected by Pyro for 40% less time, increases incoming healing by 30%. Impetuous Winds. This requires 2 wind characters. Decreases stamina consumption by 15% and increases movement speed by 10%. Shortens skill cooldown by 5%. That is really good, especially if you stack that with like 4 wind characters. That could be really, really good. But I guess then again, you really wouldn't want 4 characters, all 4 wing characters, but like still, like that's really good. High Voltage. This requires 2 electro characters. Affected by Hydro for 40% less time. Superconduct, Overloaded, and Electro Charge have a 100% chance to generate an electro elemental particle. The cooldown on this is 5 seconds. Shattering Ice. This requires 2 ice characters. Affected by Electro for 40% less time. Increases crit rate against enemies that are frozen or affected by Cryo by 15%. Okay, so coming up is the last elemental bonus in co-op mode. It's going to be called Protective Canopy, and it requires any 4 unique elemental characters. So it could be Geo, Fire, Water, Cryo. They just have to be 4 unique elements and none of the same. And what it does is it gives you an elemental resistance of 15%. So every element in the game, you're going to get a resistance up to 15%. That is so good. These are all the elemental bonuses in co-op mode for Genshin Impact. Just knowing what these are really gonna step up your gameplay in Genshin Impact. This can help against bosses, roaming the world, or even domains. These elemental bonuses are gonna go a long way. Well, I hope this video has been useful to you or provided you with some information you didn't know before. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subbed to the channel, be sure to check it out. It's an awesome place. This has been Logic, and I will see you guys in the next chapter.